Hi, welcome to my lecture on the unemployment and the reserve army of the Marxian economics course. This is actually one of the most critical concepts of Marxian economic framework. And we should note that the reserve army and the way unemployment was defined was not same for the Marx. As always, this lecture will consist of parts. And I hope it will be around 5 parts, but again, I can be wrong, especially because I'm doing this for the first time and I cannot properly necessarily guess the number of parts it will this lecture will consist of. But anyway, I want to make a brief introduction on the way unemployment concept is studied by the mainstream economics so that I can also make some contrast and also make some connections between those two studies, those two types of those two schools, basically. First, according to official definition, unemployed people are the people who are employed, who are not employed, and who are looking for a job. This basically means that if a person is employed but also looking for a job, maybe because he or she is partially employed, or maybe doesn't like the job, or the job doesn't fit his or her skills, that person is still considered as an employed person. If a person is not employed and also not looking for a job, in that case, that person is considered as not employed, outside of the labor force. So unemployed people are part of the labor force, by the way. I mean, that's why I in my labor economics course and in my introduction to economics course, I tend to call them unemployed workers because they are workers. They want work, but they don't have job at that moment. In Marx, this is different, and actually, to be fair, in many some segments, actually, most segments of Marxian definition of reserve army are also currently basically considered as maybe part of the unemployment problem, even though those people in those segments are not considered officially unemployed. And I will talk about those segments basically. The two major schools in mainstream economics, the neoclassical school and Keynesian school, have two different views on the unemployment. The one is it cannot exist. It cannot exist because if unemployment is there, that's the case of the market surplus. There's a surplus of labor power. People who want to buy it, the employers are, they demand less than the people who want to sell it, sell it, basically, the workers, the amount people want to sell. And they think that only market imperfections, maybe labor unions, for example, or state regulations maybe create unemployment. They have one important point actually, which actually might explain, which basically allows unemployment to exist, but it's a kind of a let's say not so bad situation. Unemployment is actually something that is not as bad as it seems according to that definition of unemployment, and we will see that. By the way, in labor economics, actually, there are ways you can explain unemployment even in the long run, but I'm not going into that for now. Keynesian view, by the way, based on the idea unemployment can exist in the long run. Why? Because in the short run, In the long run, the prices will fall to the point where unemployment will be cleared, but that fall in the prices might be too slow. Prices might be sticky. Why? Because workers might not accept the decrease in wages. Employers might not do that because they might be afraid of falling the productivity. As a result, you need that fall in the prices, the wages basically, wage rate basically, will happen slowly, which means for a long time you might have unemployment exist. And that's why Keynes also thinks that inflation is a healthy thing for the economic system, because it is decreasing the actually buying power of the wages and adjusting the price basically. Well, to mention it again, these are the views that are penetrating to the core of the mainstream economics. So, if you see introductory course at any level, including the master or PhD level, these are the views basically you will see mainly on unemployment and labor markets. However, if you look to the labor economics, there are some explanations. There you are looking to the job search process, and in some cases, that job search process is suddenly costly. Well, basically, at the core of the mainstream economics, labor market is just any market. I say like Apple market or any Apple market or furniture market, and there you basically put your output to the table, and basically finding the buyers and sellers is not costly in that case. While in actual case, when you are looking for a job, that is costly for you, because you need to spend your labor to look for jobs. You need to prepare. You might also need to spend some money to buy maybe suits, maybe apply to certain positions. In other words, it is something that needs an effort and money, and maybe that money and effort is not worth for the job. You might because the risk of finding employment might be low, and it's also not clear because you don't know which employer you will accept you. So each employer actually you go contains a risk. You don't know whether he or she will accept you. That's also why I discourage people to apply to one university, because you never know whether that university will accept you or not. There's always risk of rejection, even if that university your qualities are very high for that university. And the other way around it can also go. If your qualities are low, that university might have a very bad, for example, year. Applications might be very bad, and that might be a good news for you because they might accept you. Other way around, for some reason, the relatively inferior university might have a very good year, very fantastic students might have applied there. That might be bad for you. So the same thing is also true for the job search. I mean, you never know. This employer will certainly get me. That's impossible. Anyway, well, one major tool in mainstream economics on unemployment is Phillips curve, which was basically developed by the British economist Phillips in 1958, way after Keynes aside, but it is now considered as one of the major Keynesian tools. And basically, Phillips has put data points for every year. Actually, I should use this way. This way it's going this way down. Between 1861 and 1957, and those data points contain the on the y-axis the wage increase, and on the other axis unemployment. And as you might expect, when unemployment is high, wage increases are low. Or they might be even negative. They might be negative, basically. So that means wage will decrease. And when unemployment is low, wage increases are positive and high. And there are some anomalies. And for example, basically, here, for example. But Phillips explains all of his anomalies actually. He puts a lot of work on why those anomalies actually exist. So, this relation was transformed. If you are an economist, you should know this very well. Well, this axis, they said wages are an important component of the prices. So let's put, instead of the wage increase, price increase. What is the word for price increase? That's inflation. So they have built a relation between the inflation and unemployment. So when unemployment is low, inflation is high. When unemployment is high, inflation will be lower, or it might even get to negative if it's possible, of course, if the economic conditions allow that. So this becomes one of the major relations, let's say, relations that explain the unemployment. It has some further inflations for the prices basically, but the most important point is there is one particular point at which inflation is zero in this Phillips curve, and that point is considered as the natural, the point where economic system is healthy. But now, at the point where economic system is healthy, you have an unemployment. You have a positive amount of unemployment. Here it is around 6%, for example. And this is taken, by the way, from the original Phillips study. You can reach his study and you can see his charts. This is one of the charts he has actually submitted with his work. Anyway, well, later unemployment was Phillips curve was basically modified and further, and basically instead of using inflation, they have used change in inflation. So change in prices, the second degree of change in prices in other way, if we express it in other way. So that means that when unemployment is positive, inflation accelerates, it increases continuously, and when inflation is negative, it decreases continuously at an accelerating rate. And the inflation now increases and decreases, not the prices. Which means actually going away from the natural rate becomes even more risky, because you don't have stable inflation, but you have continuously worsening inflation or inflation situation when you go away from the natural rate. So how does this healthy unemployment rate is explained? It is explained by frictional unemployment based concept. What is frictional unemployment concept? It is basically stating that people need to at any point in the economic system, some people need to find jobs, some people need to find employers, and they need time to find each other. Some people need to find jobs, some people need to find workers, and those people need to find each other. And the time they need to find each other is the thing that is created unemployment, because before they can find each other, the workers remain unemployed and the jobs will remain open. How do you test whether frictional unemployment is the only reason of unemployment? Well, you can test it by looking whether the vacant jobs and the number of people unemployed are the same. If vacant jobs if the number of unemployed people are higher than vacant jobs, then this cannot be frictional unemployment, because if all jobs are filled, you still have certain people left unemployed, which means this is frictional unemployment is in that case not the reason of not the only reason of the unemployment in the system. Anyway, our first 15 minutes are almost up, so see you in the second part of this lecture. Okay.